Mental Health Division, which includes MHR and the Counseling Center. Some of the things that MHR does are we have a referral line, 718-787-1300, if you need any support or services, getting mental health help. We help walk you through the process. We have an extensive database of mental health professionals. This past year, we've given out over 2,500 referrals, so if you need anything, please reach out. We also offer free support groups to community members. We offered 14 support groups this year, and most of them come from requests from community members. Some of our support groups were, we had single moms, we had financial stress for men, we had financial stress for women, we had, by Dr. Yosef, parents of kids who were being bullied. We had body image. We have all different support groups. If you feel that there is a need for one, or something you think there's something that we should be addressing, please reach out. One of our support groups for the fall will be for parents of kids with ADHD. That's also coming from requests. We also do psychoeducation for the community, which is workshops and presentations and programs like today, also many of them based on requests from the community. We have a whole youth committee now. We've been doing Instagram Lives. We had one on, we had Alice Chira and Bonnie Towell do one recently on what your young adult wants to know about the stresses they're facing, coming into the summer. We have another one that will be addressing dating coming in, the end of July. And if you have any topics or anything that you feel needs to be addressed, or something going on, please reach out and let us know, and we'll do the best that we can. So Wellness Day, it was our first Wellness Day last year. It's a day that we are celebrating, doing what we can for ourselves to stay healthy and to promote mental health awareness, to reduce stigma, and thank you all for joining us. Today we'll be discussing raising resilient children with myself and with Dr. Nicole Yosef, who is an amazing psychologist, Director of Student Services at Yeshiva Flatbush, and she will be starting. Nicole.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you today. I'm really honored and thrilled to be here with you today at SBH's Day of Wellness. This is a beautiful, beautiful event for the community, and I just feel very honored, and I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Shmuel and to Rena Asher and to SBH for being a beautiful beacon of light for our community in so many different ways. I want to personally thank the moms at the school that I work at, Yeshiva Flatbush, for inspiring my work every day. And my name is Dr. Nicole Yosef. I'm the Director of Student Services at Yeshiva Flatbush Elementary School. I'm a school psychologist, a reading specialist, and a certified aerobics instructor, no longer practicing, but wellness in all aspects, very important to me. I have worked in public schools, in private schools, in learning centers. That is my background. And as Dr. Shmuel mentioned, I've also had the great honor to be a support group leader at SBH for parents of children that have experienced bullying. So in all of these roles, I really am constantly thinking about this topic of how to raise resilient children. But the most important role that I have, where I think about it the most, is being a mom of 3 of my own children. 3 very different children, different ages, different people. As we know, our experience raising one child is very different than raising another child. And sometimes we think, how did these people come out of the same home? Because they are so different. So how can we raise resilient children taking into account their developmental age, their level, their strengths and their weaknesses, and our own strengths and weaknesses, and take into account where we are as people and how that changes from our first child to our second to our third, moving on. So we really want to take all those things into account, and Dr. Shmuel and I feel very passionately about this topic and all of our goals, and we really want to give you guys practical, concrete strategies. A lot of talks are very theoretical, and they, go into all the reasons behind different topics, and they go into the history, and we are going to briefly touch on those things as well, but it's very important for you to come away from this with some real practical strategies. So I want you to think of today as a little bit of a fun journey that we're going to go on, because I don't think that anyone thought about this per se. You thought you're coming to a talk, but we're going to ask you to really be introspective today, which means to really think about where you are right now, because when we become more self-aware of our strengths and weaknesses and our level of resilience, just becoming more self-aware and thinking more deeply about this will make us parents that have a much easier time raising resilient children. So that's without consciously doing anything parenting-wise. That's just doing our own self-work. Okay, so we're really going to talk about all these things. First, we're going to do an overview. We are going to go into what is resilience. How did that definition change over the years? Because it has changed pretty significantly. And then we're going to talk about the soft skills that our kids need to be successful in the future, and how those skills are very different than the skills that we needed to be successful in our time. Depending on your age and your generation, things have changed tremendously. And how anxiety provoking for us as moms to send our kids out into this world with completely different expectations for success than what we are used to. It used to be that you have to go to school, and in order to get your A or your 100, you had to memorize your facts, you had to memorize your spelling words, your capitals, whatever, and take the test, and then you get your good grade, right? So that means you have to become a hard worker. You have to help your kids learn how to study. You have to teach them to study in a certain way. But now we have Google. We have AI, which I love, by the way. Who doesn't love that? To really help you write papers and different things like that. But the problem is we need to now, because of these things, raise critical thinkers. We need to raise kids who are good at teamwork and collaboration. These are very different skill sets than the skill sets that we were raised with. And that lends itself to considering the way we're parenting and maybe modifying it. Maybe we were raised with a parenting style that caused us to use a different parenting style. So the next thing we're going to talk about is to start to become aware of your personal parenting style, because there are 4 types of parenting styles, and once you become aware of the type that you are using, then you can really start to see there's one type that's actually associated with very highly resilient children. And if you're not using that type, there are things you can do and strategies you can use to feel more comfortable adopting this type of parenting style. So that's one thing. And then finally, we're going to talk about this thing called the 7 C's model of resiliency. And that's going to be very concrete, just going through ways that you can build your child's confidence overall. And competence is one of the 7 C's of resiliency. And then finally, we're going to give you the practical tips. And we'll really get into that. And I just want to say, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand, even though we're, talking in a lecture style, but we want this to be interactive. So even if I say something in the middle and you feel that you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and do so. Welcome. Okay, so you guys came just on time. Hi guys. We are going to get started right away. We just did the overview. And so should I move this? Okay. Oh wait, no, we'll start with this. Okay. So basically the first question that I have is, what is resilience? Because the definition is very broad and it's changed significantly over time. So can anyone call out, when they hear the word resilience, what do they think of?
Like being tough during hard times, strength.
Okay, so being tough during hard times, strength, bouncing back.
Well, just not letting life affect you so badly. If someone's bullying you, don't take it hard. If somebody, because you know who you are, what you are, you don't have to be so.
Yes, so not letting setbacks, really seeing them as more of something that you can handle and you can even grow from. Anyone else? Adapting, yes, that is one of the favorite keywords when we think of resiliency. So being able to adapt to change. So you guys are spot on, and actually for two reasons. So the first reason you're spot on is because the original definition of resilience was really when you think of a trauma or a toxic stressor. How are you able to adapt to that significant event, right? So we're not talking about little things. This definition in 2019 by the American Psychological Association was developed to really discuss toxic stress and trauma, right? So how do we adapt to these things? How do we, how do we move on from things such as family or relationship problems or workplace and financial stressors? Okay, but then the definition changed, and it's been changing over the years. There's even the most recent one that just came out this year. So if the original definition was in 2019 and it's changed, what events can you think of in our world that might have caused the definition to evolve? Bingo. COVID, that is, what else? 9/11, what else? Yeah, it was real, but still relevant because when you have a history of traumatic events, that the thing that happens last can be like the straw that broke the camel's back, so for sure. But definitely also COVID changed our way of thinking a lot, and all of a sudden resilience became a buzzword. So in 2021, Google stated that it was the most searched Google term, one of the top most searched Google terms in 2021. And a lot of this is because of COVID. People really kept hearing that word, resilient, resilient. How do I become more resilient during this very challenging time, right? But then the definition changed and it expanded. And people really started to think of this word, which was now part of their everyday vocabulary, but they saw it as how it can be applied to daily stress, positive stress. If you're a kid, okay, I have to go to the doctor and get a shot. If you're a parent, okay, I have to find a parking spot near my school in Brooklyn and there's a lot of traffic. So these are everyday stressors. So this association here, this came out and they said that basically how do you process and understand your response to stress? So now you're thinking about stress and your response in a more critical way than with the old, that wasn't such a big focus of the old definition, and difficulties. And how do you do this actively instead of shutting down or going numb? Now, If you picture someone who is resilient, what does their face look like? Or what do they look like? A resilient person. Could close your eyes. Peaceful. I like them. Calm. Happy. Accepting. Positive, maybe smiling.
Comfortable in their skin.
Comfortable in their skin. Yes.
Confidence in the challenge of dealing with stress.
Yes. Confidence. So you guys basically are there. These are all the C's that we're going to get to in talking about resiliency.
And also the options of A, B, and C. Thinking which one would be one success. Okay, so
Yes.
right choice. If you have stress, you have choices, A, B, and C. It's a great choice to deal with stress.
Yes. Yes. And you're able to manage it. Even if something, a major thing happens that causes a lot of stress in you, can you take it down a notch, be calm, and make your choice?
It's innate coping skills, learning coping skills.
Yes. Yes.
That's what resilience is. When a certain situation hits you, learn how to cope with it.
100%. So I think we've thrown out almost all of the C's at this point, because coping skills is also one of them. And it's certainly one of the most significant things that we can develop to become more resilient and to help our children become more resilient without even telling them anything. But just by us better developing our coping skills and confidence, we can be that model for our children. So, yeah.
Very fortunate that Shem gave us two stress parents, two dream parents.
Yes.
One tells us to never self-defining and self-defining.
Yes.
That's what we need to.
Yes. And really, the gratitude toward Hashem and spirituality and prayer, and when we pray with kavanah and mindfulness, this gratitude is so great for all of our C's, and it's really such an effective way to cope that even the secular world, who might not be so observant, has adopted this and is really trying to espouse mindfulness and meditation. But we use through prayer and as well. And if you pray mindfully, if you can do that and feel calm and get your bearings before you pray and really be mindful of each word that you say, what a beautiful thing that is for your own well-being and resiliency. So basically, this is how the definition has changed over the years to think about how we can cope with any type of stress, whether it be a trauma or something smaller. And then we want to think, why is resiliency important? How do we raise, this is really our question, how do we raise self-reliant kids that are resilient? We need to think of, even though our title today is Raising Resilient Children, we want to shift our mindset to think of resilience not as a trait that people have. Oh, she's resilient, she's not resilient, he's kind of resilient when it comes to certain topics. We want to think of it more as, this is something that can be developed. Growth mindset.
They're saying now in New York, the city is now including relaxation for children.
Yes.
Meditation
Yes.
is part of the curriculum.
Yes.
Breathing exercise.
Yes.
I think they should offer them in shoes as well.
So it's very interesting because that came up at my school. It came up in multiple schools, actually. I was talking to Dr. Shmuel and some others at SBH about it. The only thing is that it has to be done very carefully, because with students that have experienced significant trauma in their life, the way that these breathing practices are done in a uniform way, sometimes with the lights off, sometimes everyone has to be quiet, it can actually be a trigger. And it can bring back traumatic memories and events. So it has to be done in a very mindful and careful way. But yes. Yes, some kids can handle it and it's great for them, and other kids it can't. So we need to, really think about all these things, but it's very promising that people are making such efforts now for our children, both in schools and as parents, to make our children more resilient. And then the question is, how resilient are we? So now to get to what the first part of our fun self-journey right now, I would like you guys to take a minute and to close your eyes and to just think about these 5 questions and how you would answer them. So the first question or item is, I believe that difficulties are not permanent. To what degree do you believe that? Then, I see setbacks as opportunities. I have a sufficient amount of tools in my toolbox to manage my stress and different emotions. I recognize that many things are out of my control, and I'm okay with that. And finally, I have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Okay. So the degree to which you agree with these 5 statements, that gives you a measure. If you strongly agreed with most of them, or at least agreed with most of them, you are pretty resilient. Okay, so and if there were a few of these that you did not agree with, like I know personally the control one is my challenging place. In therapy and in my training as a psychologist, there are these 2 circles that they teach you about. One is the things that I can control and the things that I cannot control. So we have to get to a place where we're okay knowing that the majority of things we really can't control, right? Hashem controls these things. But what we can control are our responses, right? Our words, our actions, our thoughts, our feelings. Not that it's easy to do that, especially when some major things come up for us. So those are different measures of that. Okay. All right. So to go back for a minute, now that we have a sense of our level of resiliency personally, is I want you to think for a minute of the way that you are as a parent. Because the way that you respond to your kids as a parent is really partially due to how you were raised by your parents, right? And everybody has like their go-to responses that they're comfortable with. That they've, for whatever reason, their kid comes to them. I'll give you an example. My kid comes to me in 3rd grade and he says, I want a phone. All my friends have a phone. All my friends have, Instagram and WhatsApp and Snapchat. And I feel really left out. So how do you respond to your child, right? What do you do? So there are 4 different types of parenting styles. There used to be 3. Actually, this parenting style matrix and idea of different parenting styles goes way back to 1970. And the psychologist, she came up with 3, 1, 2, and 3. And recently, a 4th parenting style was added. But for us to learn about each of these parenting styles and what they sound like. Okay, so the first type is permissive. The second is neglectful. The third is authoritative. And the 4th is authoritarian. Okay? So these are, backed by research, the 4 most widely used different types of parenting styles. So, and when you think about your parenting style, how you were raised and how you are comfortable parenting, you want to think about 2 things. One is your warmth and responsiveness to your child, and the other is how high your expectations are of your child. Okay? So, to go back to our cell phone example, if you are a permissive parent and your 3rd grader comes to you and he says, please can I have a phone? And he gives you his whole reasoning, what you would say is, whatever you want, it's up to you. Oh my gosh, I can't believe all your friends have a phone and you don't. Let's go get you one right away. Tell me what the apps are again, and I'm going to download them for you because I want you to be popular and I want you to feel comfortable and I don't want you to have any of the bad feelings of being left out, or really any bad feelings. Also, there are bad feelings. Are there bad feelings? Okay, that's permissive. And permissive parents are very warm, very responsive, but have low expectations. Okay? So that's how they would respond in this situation. Then you have neglectful parents, which is the parenting type that was added most recently, that would say to the cell phone example, whatever, you want a cell phone, go get it. Not my problem, it's okay. You want it, you can just go and get it. Okay, so that would be, and the neglectful parents are the least demanding. They have the lowest expectations, lower than permissive, and also they are not responsive or warm because they're kind of absent. Okay? Then you have, actually I'll do this one first, you have the authoritarian parenting style. Okay, so your 3rd grader comes to you, Mom, I really want this cell phone. I feel so left out. I really, there's so many reasons I want it. And Mom says, absolutely not. And he says, but why? And because I said so, I'm your parent. And actually, that's the problem with society now, is that all these, your 3rd grade friends have cell phones. And no way. And if when your brothers come to me and ask for phones, I am not giving them phones. Not until the age that I think is the right age, which to me will always be 18. Okay, so that's the authoritarian response to this. And authoritarian parents are actually the least responsive to their children, the least warm, but they're the most demanding and have the highest expectations. So I want you to just think a minute, if you, going on our self-reflective, maybe a little difficult journey, if you were raised with one of these parenting styles so far. Just thinking about it. Okay, finally, you have authoritative which based on research is the best parenting style that we all can try to practice more of, because adapting this parenting style will really help us raise resilient children, okay? So authoritative parents are the most responsive and the most warm, and they also have very high expectations. So it's not that they're not demanding, they are, but they are also very warm and very responsive. So again, your son comes to you, I need a cell phone, please, you have to do this, my life is over, I'm the only one in 3rd grade that does not have this phone. An authoritative parent will say, I know that you want a phone. I hear you. That must be really hard, being the only kid in the grade without having a phone. Let's talk about it. I want you to give me your reasons. Let's go through what you feel you need a phone for, why, and then we're gonna make a decision about this. Then I'm gonna make the decision, and I'm also gonna set some rules around it if I agree that it's a good time to get you a phone. Also, we might talk about it and I might think, you're not ready for a phone yet, but that's okay, because we can revisit this in a couple of months. Okay, so the authoritative style is very different, as you see. It's very lengthy. It's kind of annoying. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. It takes time. You have to validate your child's emotion and their wants. You have to give them a tiny, very brief explanation. And then you, as the parents, still in your role, explain that you are the one that is making the ultimate decision, right? But you're very responsive and validating of their wants and needs along the way, okay? So now onto the outcomes. Who do you think, I mean, we already said, but which one did we say has the most beneficial outcomes? Okay, and which one has the worst outcomes? Neglectful, yes, yes.
Can you be both of these at the same time for different circumstances?
100%. We're humans. We do it. Sometimes we are so tired, and that is completely fine. And we're just like, whatever, just get the app, just do the thing. And you know what? That's totally fine, because to skip ahead to the whole thing, the whole point of this talk is not only self-awareness of your own level of resilience and parenting style, but it's to cut yourself some slack. Because really, you're doing a great job. I mean, look, all of you guys, you came here today, you are caring, you are loving, you want to do the best for your kid. And that alone is one of the top ways to raise resilient children. Just caring enough to be there for them. One caring adult, the research says, a child just having at least one caring adult that loves them unconditionally and also has high expectations for them, that is just being there and being that person and being reliable. That's a top way to raise resilient children. So you're doing it without even knowing that you're doing it. So you should cut yourself a break and give yourself a hug, because really, that's what, there's all this pressure on us to be perfect as moms and even as dads. Actually, I've been working a little bit with dads as well, that you don't have to be perfect. And it's better if you're not perfect. And then you tell your kids, I just made a mistake. And they're like, what? And you're like, yeah, I said this to my sister or my friend, and it was me. I realized it was mean. It came out, did I mean it? I don't know, but I should have taken a minute. Now what am I gonna do? You could even talk to them, depending what should I do to fix this? Oh, I think you should call her back, Mom, and apologize. I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should. I'm gonna do that. You know, so getting them a little bit involved with you in this whole process and getting them to understand that we are not perfect people. No one is perfect, and I don't expect you to be perfect, my child, because I'm not perfect. And you know what? They end up enjoying, and sometimes certain kids, especially the ones that are highly anxious, that are perfectionists, are going to come to you and say, Mom, can you tell me about a time when you made the mistake again? Because they want to feel like it's okay to make mistakes. And that's a way to raise resilient children. Okay, so now we're aware of the parenting styles. And I want to tell you something interesting, is that some research came out and showed that if you were raised in one extreme parenting style, sometimes you try to adopt the other extreme parenting style. So in other words, if you were raised by authoritarian parents who were because I said so parents, you might try to become, as a reaction, more like the permissive parent, who is, we call it like the bestie mom, like, you know, of course you can have the phone, of course you can have all the apps, we don't need to talk about it, you can have. So just be aware that your parenting style does have to do with how you were raised yourself. But how we should all aspire to be more like is the authoritative, the authoritative parenting style. Yes. So it's more of a negotiation, but even more than a negotiation, it's really validating your child's want or need in the moment. So you really want a phone. It really must be hard being the only child in your grade without. Yes, and you will monitor it depending their age and even when they're older, but it's not, you're going to give them the message, it's not because I don't trust you. I trust you. If you say this to, what? Yes, excellent. And you're bringing up something that's really great for building resiliency also, which is chores, right? So if you give your kids more responsibility, and really the goal of parenting is to raise independent, confident, initiative-taking people, right? Who get the most out of life. So if you tell them you can earn this thing by pitching in and providing a service to your family and your community, and I have faith that you can do this chore well and you can be a good contributor to our family, what that does for their confidence is immeasurable. Yes. 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 That face is the truth beyond the truth. Yes. Yes. So really, you know, the thing is that I trust you, but I don't know other people out there, and I don't necessarily trust them. And you know, even with the monitoring apps that we can put on our children's phone, we can know where they are now. We have Life 360. We can, you know, put limits that the phone shuts off at a certain time. We can try to block certain websites from them viewing them, but things happen. So the message is, it's not that I'm monitoring this because I don't trust you. It's because things happen. And I want to help you navigate the challenges.
That's very young, no? The kids really have phones at that age? Very young.
Yes. So I'm glad to hear that response from you, and I think it's interesting that a lot of you in the crowd who came today are agreeing with that sentiment, and I really do appreciate it, but a lot of kids get phones very young now. So it's a challenge. But just because that's happening doesn't mean that maybe that's not okay for you. And maybe that's okay to talk to your child about that. You know, I do feel bad for you if all the other kids in your grade have the phone. But yes. Yes. You are so on the money. I mean, specifically for the school that I'm at now they just came out with the whole cell phone policy, and I know Mag and David did the same thing, which I feel very positively about. And one of the primary reasons is not just that the kids are looking at each other more now, and they're really developing social skills at a better rate now than they were before, but even their standardized test scores have gone up pretty significantly, and I think that it is not a coincidence. So it's just an interesting, yeah.
No, it's just to go back for a second when you said the way you parent based on how you were parented. I had started a parenting book recently. It was funny. She said the same thing, that generationally, in general, parenting styles are like a reaction to the previous type of parenting style. That if one type of generation is very discipline oriented or work ethic, and then the next line is much more permissive and feelingsy, and all. It was just an interesting thing how it kind of just bounces.
Yes.
Based on the previous, but on a broader level.
Yes. And it makes a lot of sense. It's not that our parents were bad or wrong. They really weren't. At the time when we had a lot of authoritarian parents, our world was very different, right? In order to succeed in life, you had to have a strong work ethic. You had to memorize your capitals and your spelling words to be successful. Now, our kids need different skills to be successful, right? They need compassion and empathy, and they need teamwork and collaboration. So our parenting styles need to also evolve in order to help our children become resilient.
I just wanted to add one thing, by the way. Authoritarian is making a comeback. If anyone here has heard in the media about tiger moms and
Yes.
things like that, that's authoritarian. And in very high social economic status families, authoritarian is really making a comeback, which is sort of an antithesis to what we're, what we would think.
So what do you guys think, to go after, I'm so glad that Dr. Shmuel brought that up, because, this authoritarian parenting style, what do you think an authoritarian parent's reaction would be to a child saying but I feel so badly?
I don't care.
Too bad.
It's not the right time. Right now. This is my rule. This is what.
This is what it is.
There's no negotiation, no discussion, just.
Right. Is there room to validate your child's feeling with that parenting style? There's not really any room for it, right? So this whole idea of feelings, the first part of trying to be more authoritative and empathizing and validating your child's feeling, there's no room for it there. But my next question to you is, do you think being an authoritative parent is comfortable?
Yeah.
Really? Raise your hand if you think it'll be, because it really is actually don't raise your hand, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want you to think about, based on your own personality and, you know, your thoughts about how you were raised and your comfort level just right now, your own level of resiliency. Do you think being an authoritative parent is an easy thing to do?
Easy? No.
Yes.
So, I find that it's comfortable for me personally.
Okay.
I've always found it important to me for my children to have a voice, or, you know, like my husband says, I'm like MLK of being right. They get their voice heard, but at the same time, it requires ridiculous amount of patience. I learned more about patience and having children than anything else I ever did in my entire life. But when you see the results from it, you put the work in, and you get the rewards back, it propels you to keep going. But is it every day? Is it every minute? No, definitely not. I find that sometimes permissive parenting is described as not wanting your children to feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
But it's also about the parent not wanting to feel uncomfortable or listen to the 20-minute tantrum instead of fun. And I don't feel like that would solve them.
Yes.
Like my friend asked, and she's like, well, what if you're authoritative and you validate their feelings and everything, you explain to them and they're still upset. So
Yes.
for me, like a lot of the times, like if my child is crying or she's upset, I say, you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to be upset, but whatever, you just let them be upset. I let them throw a tantrum, whatever.
Yes.
Tell them I understand you. I understand that everyone has it and you can't have it. And I understand why you're upset.
Yes.
For right now, I think this is the best solution.
Yes.
We'll talk about it again.
How hard is it to sit there when your baby, your kid who you want to bubble wrap, who you love, who is your heart walking around outside of your body, is upset? It feels horrible. How can we just sit there and be okay with that? But we have to. We have to be okay with it. It's so hard for me with my last one, to be fully transparent, she's my girl, is that I started to look up different techniques for myself. And the one that I found that worked for me was the most difficult for me to do, that I never had to do with my other kids. While she is tantruming, there's this whole thing of lean in, okay? So you actually, in the middle of the tantrum, you sit down next to them and you say to them, I'm here. If you want a hug, I'm here. And she's throwing things and she's smacking things and she's killing her brother and I have to remove him and it's a complete nightmare disaster. And God bless the energy that where do they get it from when they are tantruming like that? But you sit and then sometimes you say, I would like to hug you whenever you're ready. I'm sorry. I'm here for a hug when you're ready. Yes. This is little, very little, I should say. But I will tell you something crazy. There are parents that I've spoken with that this technique works with them, and this is a crazy thing to say, but in middle school, even. When they are pushing you away the most, when they are a toddler, when they are, 3, 4, and 5, they're gonna push you away the same amount or more. They kill you when they are a teenager, right? But, strangely leaning into it and telling them you're here for them and you would even offer them a hug if they wanted it, or you're here to talk even while they're totally having a meltdown. So these are different ideas, but we have to get comfortable, which authoritative allows for, have to get comfortable letting us and our kids have feelings that are considered bad feelings, even though no feelings are bad feelings. We can't swoop in We don't want to swoop in when the kid is sad and fix it. We don't want to swoop in when our child is angry and fix it. We want to let them feel it, know that we're here for them, and we're here to talk with them about it, and that we can problem solve together. Because teaching our kids that they can handle their feelings, and again, we trust you to handle your feelings, and you can feel them and get through this. And furthermore, you can not only be in the minute with these really hard feelings, but you can also talk to me about them, and you can problem solve. I have confidence that you can get through this. So that's another, a big piece. Okay. So, okay, this was these are all different tenets of the authoritative parenting style, just believing that children all deserve to belong and feel loved, that no one is perfect, as we talked about before. This is so important because I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect, and no one is perfect, and the same to be conveyed to your kids. Okay, so you failed the test. Like, I'm upset. Maybe do you feel good about how much you studied for it? Think about it. But we can learn from this. You know, you failed the test and you made a mistake. It's okay. Your life is not over. We're going to get through it. Mistakes are a learning opportunity. The mind is growing, and children will not know how to do things unless someone, namely us, helps guide them. So we have to become really good at assessing our children's skills, right? Because I had a mom whose child is diagnosed with autism, and she really struggled with social skills, right? So mom wants her to be resilient. She is authoritative. She is trying her best to validate how her child feels about being bullied. She was able to express to her mom that she feels like she's being bullied, and she was able to express that she's very upset about it, and her mom validated it, and she said, you know, what can we do? Let's talk about this. How will you respond to these girls when they say this to you? But what she found was her daughter really didn't have the skills for responding. So in that case, she really needed to take a step back and teach her child, her daughter, these skills. How would you feel? Well, would you feel comfortable walking away? Would you feel comfortable saying to the girl, that hurts my feelings, stop saying that? Until she gave her a few scripts and they practiced it, and she found the one that was right for her. But that level of support is not necessary for all kids her age. It was just because her mom did a really good assessment and thinking, where are my child's skills very strong and where are they lacking? I have to provide her with more skills. So that's, yeah. Okay, fine. Oh my gosh, I didn't even look at this. Okay. Now, Dr. Schmuel will talk about the tips. So, maybe one of these.
Okay, so I'm going to go over a few skills and strategies that you could work on with your children that will help them become more resilient. Because it's very important to understand that like temperament is something that you're born with. It's inherent to someone. But resiliency, as Dr. Yosef said, is not something that you're born with. It's something that can be taught, it's something that can be learned, and it's something that can be modeled. One of the most crucial, first and foremost things to do is to foster a loving and supportive environment for our children. When our children trust us and we're reliable and they know that we love them and there's open communication, but at the same time, we're also teaching them autonomy and competence and agency. That is when they're going to flourish. When they know that if they do make a mistake, it's okay. You know, my parents love me. They're going to support me. They're going to help me, get back up. Setting realistic expectations. Like Dr. Yosef just said with the mother. you can't make unrealistic expectations of your children because then you're setting them up for failure. You need to learn who is your child, what are they capable of, and set the expectations where they will be able to be. It has to be like a balance between pushing them to get better and encouraging their growth and helping them be successful. And also encouraging them to ask for help. It's very important for a child to learn that it's okay to ask for help and to know when to ask for help and how to ask for help because that's really how they learn, how they get support, and we could do this by modeling. Another important tool in raising resilient children is teaching them problem-solving skills, encouraging them to think critically. Helping them make decisions, and then helping them understand the consequences of their decisions that they do make. Because if our children never experiences the consequences of their decisions and their actions, what kind of message is that sending to them? We need to help them navigate challenges, not to protect them from every challenge. Helping them develop problem-solving strategies will also help them build their confidence. Teaching our children healthy coping mechanisms is very important for teaching resilience. Life is full of ups and downs, and as much as we want to protect them as they get older, as they move through middle school and high school and college, they're going to face adversity. There's nothing we could do to protect our children from adversity, and if they don't learn how to manage disappointment and manage challenges and live up to the challenge and learn how to find solutions, we're really setting them up for failure when they're older. Like Dr. Yosef said before, helping children understand what they can control and what they can't is also a very important skill. Let's say the example of your child failed a test. Sorry. If your child has an inner locus of control, that means that they feel like they're able to affect their environment. Things don't just happen to them. They're able to do things and to work with things and make things happen. So if your child failed a test, are they saying, oh, the teacher made the test too hard, it was a totally unfair test? Or do they admit, you know what, I was on TikTok for 3 hours last night and I really didn't study for the test. So helping the children, your child understand what they can control and what they can't is very important to building resilience. Allowing children to practice these life skills and build self-efficacy. When my kids were young, there was a trend that everyone got a trophy. Whenever there was a tournament or any kind of party, everybody won a trophy. And at the time, mental health professionals thought that this would boost confidence and help kids believe in themselves. But at the end of the day, it ended up not doing that because kids are very smart and they know when we're rewarding them or telling them what a great job they did. If they didn't really do that great job and they didn't earn it, it actually has the opposite effect and is not helpful in building their self-confidence. They have to know, they know when they really did something well and when they really did a good job, and that's what we really have to, focus on and help them understand. Strong connections with social supports, helping them, pick the right friends, modeling supportive and healthy relationships for them. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to rush through. We'll send this out. Helping kids learn how to have empathy and to be empathetic towards their friends and towards others is also very important. Helping them label their emotions, ask questions about their emotions, sharing your own feelings. Like Dr. Yosef said, if you make a mistake, let your child know. Work it through them. Let them see that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay. There are solutions. We can work through anything. Teaching them self-control, the ability to control their attention, emotions, thoughts, and actions, also very important. How do we teach a child self-control? So we could do this by giving by giving signals. I don't know if anyone's a teacher in the room, but very, very common for teachers to give kids signals. If you have bells when you want to get their attention, or a phrase, pencils down, eyes up, something. And there's a reason why teachers do this, because you're conditioning the child to hear the signal and to react. So as parents, you could do that as well. If you want to get your child's attention, if you're ready to tell them something that they need to hear, have a phrase that you go to. Are you ready to listen? We're going to discuss something now. Are you ready to listen? Having signals like that will help teach your child self-control. And stress pauses. If your child, is upset about something and they're going to make a decision, tell them, teach them, count to 10. Don't make that decision. Don't say something to your friend when you're upset like that. Count to 10. It gives them time to think it through, and then, they can make the decision. Teaching your child integrity. Laying out expectations and giving them the space to develop their own moral compass. Praising them when they do the right thing. This is very important in raising resilient children. Also curiosity, perseverance, and optimism. Those are 3 traits that when we teach our children, especially optimism. I know, from my own kids, I have 3 very optimistic kids and 1 very negative child. And it's really a struggle, if they look at everything, when they look at challenges as temporary and something that they can overcome, it's very different than, when everything is a catastrophe. And, we really need to give our children a reality check when they're over-catastrophizing things. And, I feel that this is the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. We'll get through it. There's other tests. I wanted to thank you all for coming. Being here today is a testament to your commitment as parents. Thank you, Dr. Yosef, for sharing your knowledge. And, I'm already running late. I wanted to introduce Shlomo Lieberman, who is the director of the Mental Health Division at SBH. Thank you so much, Shlomo, for being here today. He's going to help us learn about the ins and outs of, getting mental health support and help. Thank you, Shlomo.